Caregiving isn't just a role, it's a commitment, a calling, a life-altering responsibility. For some, it starts with a simple phone call, a late-night worry about mum's memory slipping, or dad's health taking a sudden turn. And before you know it, you're stepping into a world where you're not just a child anymore. You're the decision maker, the advocate, the comforter. But here's the reality. Caregiving isn't just about helping with daily tasks or managing medical appointments. It's about embracing an entirely new set of challenges, ones that weigh on your heart and your body. It's about feeling stretched thin between work, family, and the ever-growing needs of your loved one. It's about lying awake at night, battling the guilt for not doing more, and the exhaustion from doing too much. Today, we're talking about the reality of caregiving. We're peeling back the layers to look at the emotional and physical toll it takes, even when we don't like to admit it. We'll discuss the common struggles that caregivers face, from feeling overwhelmed and isolated to the guilt that creeps in when you're just trying to catch a breath. But more importantly, we'll talk about how to navigate this journey with grace, how to give yourself permission to be imperfect, and how to find strength in the small victories, even on the hardest days. Let's start with the emotional challenges of caregiving. Caregiving is often described as a labor of love, but let's be real. It's a complex, emotional roller coaster. While you may begin the journey with a sense of duty or even gratitude for the opportunity to give back to a loved one, the emotional challenges soon begin to weigh heavily. Today, let's dive into some of the raw, unspoken emotions that many caregivers experience. Guilt, anger, frustration, loneliness, and even burnout. Because understanding these feelings is the first step toward dealing with them. Let's start with the big one, guilt. It sneaks into almost every caregiving scenario. You feel guilty when you can't be there every minute, guilty for wanting a break, guilty for feeling annoyed or frustrated. It's this constant internal dialogue of, am I doing enough? Or, should I have done more? That wears you down. The truth is, no matter how much you do, it never feels like it's enough because you want so badly to see your loved one happy and healthy. And when that doesn't happen, you turn the blame inward. But here's the reality that needs to be heard. You are enough. What you're doing is enough. We often forget that caregiving is not about perfection. It's about doing the best you can with what you have, even if that means taking some time for yourself. Guilt can be a powerful motivator, but it can also be a destructive force that prevents you from caring for yourself, and you cannot pour from an empty cup. It's important to recognize when guilt starts to shift from a reminder of your love and dedication to a constant burden on your heart. And then there's anger and frustration. Now, these are emotions that most caregivers don't feel comfortable talking about. Because how could you be angry at someone you love who is suffering? It feels wrong, doesn't it? But anger is a natural response to feeling overwhelmed and helpless. Maybe you're angry at the disease for taking away the person you once knew, or frustrated because the demands are just too much. Maybe you feel trapped, like no matter how much effort you put in, it's never enough. These feelings don't make you a bad person. They make you human. However, it's important to find healthy ways to express and manage that anger. Suppressing it only builds resentment, and eventually, it can spill over in ways that are harmful to both you and your loved one. Find an outlet, whether it's talking to a trusted friend, joining a support group, or even writing your thoughts down in a journal. Sometimes, just admitting that you're struggling can be a relief. Which brings us to one of the heaviest weights a caregiver can bear: isolation. Feeling isolated and lonely is common, even if you're surrounded by people. When you're caring for a loved one, your world often shrinks to the size of your daily routine. Medications, doctor's appointments, meals, and perhaps endless hours of sitting quietly with someone who may not even be able to hold a conversation. The social invitations dwindle because friends don't understand your reality. and you're left with a deep sense of loneliness that's hard to shake off. This loneliness isn't just about the physical absence of people. It's about the emotional distance that starts to form when you feel like no one else can truly understand what you're going through. You miss the person your loved one used to be, and you miss who you used to be before caregiving became your entire world. It's okay to feel lonely, and it's okay to grieve those losses. What's not okay is thinking that you have to bear this burden alone. Reach out for help, even if it's just a regular phone call with a friend or a quick coffee break. The smallest moments of connection can remind you that you're still part of the world outside of caregiving. And then there's something deeper, something that goes beyond regular stress or exhaustion. It's called compassion fatigue. It's different from burnout, though the two are closely related. Burnout is what happens when you're physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted. Compassion fatigue, on the other hand, occurs when you've given so much of yourself to caring for another that you start to lose your ability to empathize. You're still doing the tasks, still providing the care, but there's a numbness that starts to creep in. It's a defense mechanism, a way your mind tries to protect itself from the constant pain of seeing someone you love suffer. Compassion fatigue can manifest in different ways: irritability, feeling disconnected, or even just an overwhelming sense of dread at the thought of another day. And when you reach this point, it's not just your ability to care for your loved one that suffers, but your entire sense of self. It's like you start to forget who you are outside of being a caregiver. So how do we address these challenges? It starts with giving yourself permission to take a step back. Self-care isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. You might feel selfish for taking time away from caregiving, but remember that you can't provide the best care for someone else if you're running on empty. Whether it's an hour to take a walk, a day to recharge, or a weekend to reconnect with friends, you need to allow yourself that time without guilt. It's also important to recognize when you need additional help. There is no shame in seeking respite care, joining a support group, or talking to a mental health professional. You are not alone in this journey. Millions of caregivers experience these same struggles, and sharing your experiences can help lessen the weight you're carrying. Remember, the emotions that come with caregiving don't make you weak, they make you real. They're part of what it means to love someone enough to walk this path with them, no matter how difficult it becomes. Acknowledge your feelings, but don't let them consume you. Find ways to express them, release them, and remind yourself that it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. It doesn't make you less of a caregiver. It makes you human. The next section is the practical and financial considerations. Now that we've discussed the emotional side of caregiving, let's turn to another reality, one that can often be just as overwhelming: the practical and financial considerations. It's a side of caregiving that we don't always talk about up front, but the financial impact is significant. We have to face the hard truths about what happens when you leave a job to care for an elderly parent, explore financial support options, and think ahead to the long-term consequences for your social security, retirement savings, and career. Leaving your job to become a full-time caregiver can seem like the most loving choice. After all, you want to be there for your parent, to provide the care that no one else can. But it's essential to be realistic about the implications. Giving up a steady income affects more than just your monthly budget. There's a ripple effect that can reach into your future and your overall financial health. When you leave a job, the immediate and most obvious impact is the loss of income. Depending on how long you step away from the workforce, this can mean years without a paycheck, which makes it difficult to cover daily expenses, let alone save for emergencies or your own future. This loss of income also translates to a loss of benefits. Without employer-provided health insurance, you may find yourself paying more out of pocket for medical care. And if you had a retirement plan or 401k match at work, you lose out on those contributions as well. Social security is another critical factor. the time you spend out of the workforce won't count towards your social security benefits. If you're not earning an income, you're not contributing to your future benefits, and this can lower the monthly amount you receive when you retire. It may not seem like a big deal now, but down the line, this could affect your ability to live comfortably in retirement. It's important to consider that caregiving can last longer than you expect. According to the Family Caregiver Alliance, the average duration of caregiving is 4.5 years, but it's not uncommon for it to stretch to a decade or more. As the years go by, re-entering the workforce becomes more challenging. The job market evolves, and you may find that your skills are outdated or that you're competing with younger candidates who have more recent experience. The longer you're away, the harder it becomes to find a job that pays what you were making before, let alone a job that offers benefits like health insurance and retirement savings plans. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't leave your job to care for a loved one, but you need to go into it with open eyes. It's not just a temporary decision, it's one that has long-term consequences. So, let's talk about ways to alleviate some of these financial burdens. There are programs out there that can help ease the financial strain, but they're not always easy to find or navigate. For example, Medicaid offers some options for paying family caregivers, but these vary by state. Some states have consumer-directed programs which allow Medicaid beneficiaries to hire family members as paid caregivers. The pay may not be substantial, but it can help offset some of the costs associated with caregiving. Then there are VA benefits. If your parent is a veteran, the Department of Veterans Affairs provides several programs that can help with the costs of care. The Aid and Attendance Benefit, for instance, is a pension program that provides extra income to veterans who need help with daily living activities. This additional financial support can be used to cover in-home care services, including care provided by family members. Tax deductions are another avenue to explore. If your loved one qualifies as your dependent, you may be able to deduct their medical expenses on your tax return. Even if you can't claim them as a dependent, you may still be able to deduct some unreimbursed medical expenses that you pay for on their behalf. It's worth consulting with a tax professional who understands caregiving-related tax issues to help maximize any deductions you may qualify for. In addition to immediate financial assistance, long-term planning is crucial. One of the most important steps you can take is to have a conversation with your loved one about their finances. It's not easy, but it's necessary. You need to know what resources they have, such as savings, pensions, or long-term care insurance. Understanding these resources can help you plan for the future and make informed decisions about when and how to bring in additional help or transition to professional care. Speaking of long-term planning, don't forget about your own financial future. If you leave the workforce, find ways to keep contributing to your retirement savings, even if it's a smaller amount. Consider setting up an IRA, which allows you to make tax-deductible contributions, or a Roth IRA, where your contributions grow tax-free. Every little bit helps, and the earlier you start, the more you'll have when you need it. Also, think about social security strategies. If you're married, your spouse's social security benefits could impact your planning. Delaying your benefits can result in a higher monthly payment once you start collecting, so it's worth exploring different scenarios to find the one that benefits you most. There are financial advisors who specialize in social security planning, and consulting one could be a valuable step. Another consideration is re-entering the workforce when the time comes. Start planning for this transition early by keeping your skills up to date. Take online courses, attend workshops, or even volunteer in your field to keep your resume relevant. Stay in touch with former colleagues and professional networks. These connections can be invaluable when you're ready to return to work, offering job leads and recommendations. Leaving a job to care for a loved one is a profound act of love and sacrifice, but it's not without its challenges. The emotional and physical demands of caregiving are compounded by financial considerations that can have a lasting impact on your life. By understanding these challenges and planning ahead, you can make choices that protect your financial health while still providing the care your loved one needs. Remember, it's okay to ask for help, whether it's financial assistance, respite care, or advice from a professional. Take the time to explore all your options and don't be afraid to reach out to your network. The more informed and prepared you are, the better equipped you'll be to navigate the road ahead. In our next section, we'll discuss how to set boundaries and manage toxic family dynamics. Setting boundaries and managing toxic family dynamics are some of the most challenging aspects of caregiving. When we talk about caregiving, we often focus on the person who needs care. But what about the complex web of family relationships that come into play? What do you do when your siblings aren't pulling their weight, or when an elderly parent is difficult, abusive, or manipulative? Let's dive into these issues head-on. Let's start with the idea of detaching with love. This means maintaining a healthy emotional distance from the negative behaviors of a loved one while still being present and supportive. It's a difficult balance to strike, especially when dealing with an elderly parent who may be overly critical, verbally abusive, or emotionally manipulative. When their behavior seems to aim at hurting you or controlling you, detaching doesn't mean you stop caring or completely withdraw from the relationship. Instead, it involves setting boundaries to protect your emotional well-being. You acknowledge the reality of their behavior, but you don't internalize their negative emotions. It's important to remember that an elderly parent's behavior may be influenced by their declining health, chronic pain, or dementia, which can make them irritable or unreasonable. While you can empathize with what they're going through, you don't have to tolerate abusive behavior. Establishing boundaries might involve limiting the time you spend with them, or choosing not to engage in certain conversations. For example, if your parent is constantly critical about your caregiving, you can say something like, "I'm doing my best and I'm not going to discuss this further," and then walk away. It's about taking back some control in an otherwise uncontrollable situation. When it comes to managing toxic behavior, it's also crucial to have a support network outside of the family, whether that's friends, a therapist, or a support group for caregivers. Sometimes, having someone to vent to who isn't involved in the situation can help you maintain your perspective and sanity. Now, let's talk about siblings. The dynamics with siblings can become strained when one person takes on most, if not all, of the caregiving responsibilities. Often, it's the sibling who lives closest, has a more flexible job, or doesn't have children of their own who becomes the primary caregiver by default. This unequal burden can lead to feelings of unfairness, burnout, and resentment. You might wonder, why aren't my siblings stepping up? Don't they care about mom or dad as much as I do? The reality is, they may care just as much, but feel overwhelmed, guilty, or helpless themselves. There are common excuses that siblings use for not helping with caregiving. Some say, "I don't have the time," "I can't afford to help," or "I can't handle seeing mom or dad like this." While these reasons may be genuine, they don't excuse abandoning responsibility. However, understanding the underlying reasons for these excuses can help you find realistic ways for them to contribute. Maybe they can't provide hands-on care, but they can help with finances, handle paperwork, or provide respite by visiting or calling regularly. If you're the primary caregiver, it's natural to feel resentment towards siblings who don't pull their weight, but harboring that resentment can harm your relationship with them and make the situation even more stressful. It's important to communicate your needs clearly and set boundaries about what you are and aren't willing to do. For instance, if a sibling consistently refuses to help, you might say, "I can't continue doing this on my own. If you can't take over some responsibilities, we'll need to hire outside help and share the cost." Sometimes, being direct and setting realistic expectations can change the dynamic. Instead of vague requests like, "I need more help," try making specific asks. "Can you take mom to her doctor's appointment next Tuesday?" Or "Can you contribute $100 a month towards hiring a part-time caregiver?" When the request is clear and specific, It's harder for siblings to dismiss it or make excuses. But what do you do when siblings disagree about what's best for your parent? It's not uncommon for family members to have different perspectives on caregiving decisions. One sibling might think assisted living is the right choice, while another feels strongly about keeping mom or dad at home. These disagreements can turn into full-blown conflicts if not approached with empathy. Remember, everyone wants what's best for your parent, even if they have different opinions on what that looks like. The key to navigating these disagreements is to focus on shared goals and use facts to back up your position. For instance, if you're advocating for assisted living, come prepared with information about the level of care your parent needs, costs, and why you believe this is the best option. If emotions are running high, it may be helpful to involve a professional mediator or family therapist who specializes in elder care. Sometimes, having a neutral third party can help guide the conversation and keep everyone focused on the main goal, your parents' well-being. There's also the issue of knowing when to say no to caregiving. It's a hard decision, but sometimes stepping back is the best option for everyone involved. You might have reached a point where your mental and physical health are suffering, and continuing to provide care is no longer sustainable. Or maybe your parents' needs have surpassed what you're able to provide at home. It's okay to acknowledge that you need a break or that it's time to seek professional help. Saying no doesn't mean you're abandoning your loved one. It means you're making a responsible decision to get the care they need while also protecting yourself. Sometimes, stepping back also means relinquishing control of certain responsibilities to siblings or professional caregivers, even if you don't entirely trust them to handle things the way you would. It's about prioritizing your well-being and recognizing that you cannot and should not do it all. Setting boundaries, managing toxic family dynamics, and navigating the sibling dynamic are some of the toughest aspects of caregiving, but they are also crucial for maintaining your own mental health and sustaining your ability to provide care. Remember, you're not alone in facing these challenges, and there is no one right way to handle these complex situations. What's important is finding a path that works for you and your family. In our next segment, we'll explore the practical solutions to common caregiving problems. When you're caring for an elderly loved one, the list of potential challenges seems endless. From managing emotional outbursts and temper tantrums to addressing memory care needs and resisting the urge to fix everything, caregivers often find themselves navigating a maze of stressful situations. Fortunately, practical solutions exist to help alleviate some of these common problems and make the caregiving journey more manageable. Let's explore effective strategies for dealing with 3 significant issues: managing elderly temper tantrums, addressing memory care needs, and avoiding the fix-it trap. The first is managing elderly temper tantrums and emotional outbursts. Elderly adults can experience emotional outbursts for a variety of reasons, including cognitive decline, pain, frustration, or feeling out of control. While it's easy to become upset or defensive during these moments, there are practical ways to handle these situations calmly and effectively. Tip 1. Understand the root cause. The first step in managing an elderly person's temper tantrums is to identify what may be causing the outburst. The trigger could be physical, pain, hunger, fatigue; emotional, loneliness, fear, depression; or environmental, too much noise, unfamiliar surroundings. Identifying the root cause can help you address the underlying issue rather than just reacting to the behavior. If your loved one is consistently irritable or agitated, it may be worth discussing with their doctor to rule out medical conditions like urinary tract infections, which can cause unusual behavioral changes in seniors. Tip 2. Use calm communication. When a senior is having an emotional outburst, remain calm and speak in a soothing tone. Avoid raising your voice or arguing with them, as this can escalate the situation. Instead, acknowledge their feelings by saying something like, "I can see you're upset. Let's talk about what's bothering you." Validation helps the person feel heard and understood, which can sometimes diffuse the tension. Tip 3. Redirect and distract. For seniors, especially those with dementia, redirection can be a useful tool. If a senior is upset over a specific issue that cannot be resolved in the moment, try to gently steer the conversation toward a different topic or engage them in a calming activity. Activities like looking at old photographs, listening to music they enjoy, or engaging in a simple hobby can help divert their attention from the source of frustration. Tip 4. Set boundaries. When necessary, while understanding and empathy are essential, it's also important to set boundaries. If a senior's behavior is abusive or harmful, calmly let them know that such behavior is not acceptable. You can say, "I'm here to help, but I won't stay in the room if you're yelling at me." Then, leave the room for a few minutes. This can help the senior recognize that there are consequences for their actions without escalating the situation. Now let's talk about addressing memory care needs and deciding on facility placement. Caring for someone with memory loss or dementia presents unique challenges, including ensuring their safety, managing behavioral symptoms, and deciding whether to transition them into a memory care facility. Here are some strategies for handling these challenges. Tip 1. Create a safe and supportive home environment. For seniors in the early stages of dementia, it may still be possible to keep them at home with some modifications. This may involve installing locks on doors and windows to prevent wandering, adding grab bars in bathrooms, and removing trip hazards like loose rugs. Simplifying the home layout and labeling drawers or rooms can help seniors navigate their surroundings more easily. Tip 2. Establish a routine. Having a structured daily routine can provide a sense of security and help reduce anxiety for someone with memory loss. Consistency in mealtimes, medication schedules, and activities can minimize confusion and agitation. Try to incorporate familiar tasks or hobbies into the routine, even if they need to be simplified. Tip 3. Know when it's time to consider memory care. Deciding when to move a loved one to a memory care facility is one of the most challenging decisions a caregiver will face. Signs that it may be time include increased safety concerns, wandering, leaving the stove on, worsening hygiene, frequent mood swings, or the inability to perform daily activities like dressing and eating. If the caregiver's health is also deteriorating, or if the demands of care are becoming too overwhelming, it may be time to consider a memory care facility. Tip 4. Research facilities. Not all memory care facilities are created equal, so take the time to research and visit different places. Ask about staff training, resident-to-staff ratios, the types of activities offered, and the facility's approach to managing behavioral symptoms. It's essential to find a place where your loved one will feel comfortable and where their needs will be met with compassion and professionalism. Tip 5. Ease the transition. The transition to a memory care facility can be difficult for both the caregiver and the senior. To help your loved one adjust, bring familiar items from home, such as photos, favorite blankets, or personal keepsakes, to their new living space. It's also helpful to maintain a consistent visiting schedule in the beginning so they can feel a sense of continuity. However, be prepared for some initial resistance or distress as they adapt to the new environment. Next, it is handling the fix-it trap and avoiding overcommitment. Caregivers often fall into the fix-it mentality, where they feel the need to solve every problem and meet every need. While this approach comes from a place of love and concern, it can lead to burnout and overcommitment. Here's how to avoid the fix-it trap. Tip 1. Recognize the signs of overcommitment. The fix-it mentality often results in taking on too much, leading to physical and emotional exhaustion. Signs of overcommitment include feeling constantly tired, irritable, or anxious, neglecting your own health and well-being, and having little time for hobbies or social interactions. If you notice these signs, it's time to reassess your caregiving role and make adjustments. Tip 2. Set realistic goals and priorities. You cannot do everything for your loved one, and it's okay to acknowledge that. Focus on what is most important for their health and safety, and let go of less critical tasks. For example, if cooking a homemade meal every day is too time-consuming, consider meal delivery services or preparing easy-to-reheat dishes in advance. Identify tasks that can be outsourced or delegated to other family members, friends, or paid caregivers. Tip 3. Involve your loved one in decision-making. Whenever possible, involve the elderly person in their own care decisions. This approach not only respects their autonomy, but also reduces the pressure on you to always be the fixer. Ask them what tasks they would like help with and which ones they prefer to handle themselves. Even if they need more assistance, giving them choices can help them feel more in control of their situation. Tip 4. Learn to say no and set boundaries. As a caregiver, it's okay to say no when you are overwhelmed. Setting limits on what you can and cannot do helps protect your well-being. For instance, if a family member expects you to handle all of the caregiving responsibilities, explain why this is not sustainable and discuss ways to share the load. Boundaries are also crucial when interacting with the person you're caring for, especially if they have a tendency to demand constant attention or help. Tip 5. Avoid guilt by practicing self-compassion. It's easy to feel guilty when you're not able to fix every problem or when you have to take a step back from caregiving responsibilities. However, remember that being a good caregiver doesn't mean doing everything yourself. It means ensuring that your loved one gets the best possible care, even if that involves asking for help or using outside resources. Practicing self-compassion can help you avoid feelings of guilt and maintain a healthier balance in your caregiving role. Tip 6. Make use of respite services. Respite care is one of the most valuable tools for preventing burnout and avoiding overcommitment. It can come in many forms, such as in-home care, adult day programs, or temporary stays at assisted living facilities. Regularly scheduled respite breaks allow you to recharge and take care of your own needs, making you a more effective and sustainable caregiver in the long run. By implementing these practical strategies, caregivers can manage the challenges associated with elderly temper tantrums, memory care needs, and the fix-it mentality. The goal is not to eliminate every problem, but to create a caregiving approach that is more sustainable, compassionate, and effective for both the caregiver and the person receiving care. The next segment is about the signs of caregiver burnout and how to prevent it. Burnout, it's a word we hear a lot when we talk about caregiving. But what does it really mean? For caregivers, burnout goes beyond just being tired. It's a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by the prolonged and overwhelming stress that caregiving brings. And here's the thing, burnout doesn't happen overnight. It creeps up on you, slowly draining your energy and spirit. Let's dive into how to recognize the early warning signs of caregiver burnout, ways to reduce stress, and what to do when you need professional help. The first step in preventing burnout is recognizing the early warning signs. These signs may seem small at first, easy to brush off as just a rough day or a temporary feeling, but if left unchecked, they can lead to serious consequences for your health and well-being. Let's start with emotional exhaustion. You might notice that you're more irritable than usual, or that small things set you off. Maybe you're finding it harder to feel joy, even in moments that used to bring you happiness. If you've reached a point where you're feeling emotionally numb or detached, that's a red flag. You might start withdrawing from social interactions, losing interest in hobbies, or avoiding conversations with friends and family. These are classic signs of emotional exhaustion, a key component of burnout. Physical symptoms can also indicate that you're heading towards burnout. Maybe you're having trouble sleeping, even when you're exhausted, or perhaps you're dealing with frequent headaches, muscle pain, or digestive issues. When stress accumulates over time, it takes a toll on your body, not just your mind. Don't ignore these signs. They're your body's way of telling you that something needs to change. And then there's cynicism and detachment. If you find yourself thinking, "What's the point?" or feeling like you're just going through the motions, you may be experiencing a deeper level of burnout. This can manifest as a lack of empathy towards your loved one, or even resentment. It's okay to admit that these feelings exist. They don't make you a bad person or a bad caregiver. So, what can we do to prevent burnout before it takes hold? Reducing stress and sharing the caregiving burden are crucial steps. Here are some practical tips to help lighten the load and create a healthier balance. First, don't be afraid to ask for help. Caregiving often feels like it's all on your shoulders, but it doesn't have to be that way. Reach out to friends, family members, or even neighbors who might be willing to step in, even if it's just for an hour or two. It's important to be specific when you ask for help. Instead of saying, "I need more help around here," try something like, "Can you sit with Dad on Wednesday while I run errands?" Or "Would you be able to pick up groceries this week?" Specific requests are easier for people to commit to. It's also worth looking into respite care services. Respite care can provide temporary relief by taking over some caregiving responsibilities, whether that means in-home care for a few hours a week, adult day programs, or even a short-term stay at a care facility. Think of it as giving yourself permission to recharge. You're not abandoning your loved one. You're making sure you have the strength to continue caring for them. Another important strategy is to establish a daily routine. Having a set schedule can reduce the feeling of chaos and make each day more manageable. When possible, try to incorporate small breaks throughout the day. Even a 5-minute walk, a quiet moment with a cup of tea, or a short meditation can help reset your mind and body. Setting boundaries is also a critical part of avoiding burnout. It's okay to say no sometimes. You don't have to do everything. In fact, trying to do it all is a recipe for burnout. If your loved one's needs are beyond what you can provide, consider bringing in additional help or exploring assisted living options. Remember, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a step towards sustainability. It's also essential to prioritize self-care. Self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary. Whether that means exercising, reading, spending time with friends, or engaging in a hobby, make time for activities that bring you joy and relaxation. Sometimes this means scheduling time for yourself, just like you would schedule a doctor's appointment. Treat it as non-negotiable because your well-being is just as important as your loved ones. But what if you're already feeling overwhelmed? That's where seeking professional help comes in. There is no shame in talking to a therapist or counselor, especially one who understands the unique challenges of caregiving. They can help you process your emotions, develop coping strategies, and provide a safe space to talk about the difficulties you're facing. Sometimes caregivers also benefit from joining support groups, whether online or in person. Sharing your experiences with others who understand can be incredibly validating and therapeutic. It's a reminder that you're not alone in this, and sometimes just knowing that can make all the difference. If your loved one's condition is deteriorating and the level of care required is more than you can provide, it's important to acknowledge when it's time to step back. That might mean transitioning your loved one to a professional care setting where they can receive the specialized attention they need. It's not an easy decision, but sometimes it's the best one for both you and your loved one. Remember, burnout is not a failure. It's a sign that you've been giving your all and now it's time to replenish your energy. The goal isn't to avoid all stress, because let's face it, caregiving is inherently stressful. The goal is to manage that stress, to recognize when you're reaching your limits, and to take action before you reach the breaking point. Recognizing the early signs of burnout, finding ways to share the caregiving burden, and seeking help when needed are all acts of strength. They're steps towards sustaining not just your ability to care for your loved one, but also your ability to care for yourself. In the next segment, we'll explore how to maintain a sense of purpose and positivity on this caregiving journey. Because yes, while it can be challenging, caregiving can also be a profoundly meaningful experience. In the following segment, we will talk about respite care and other support resources. Caregiving is a marathon, not a sprint, And like any marathon, you need to pace yourself if you want to make it to the finish line. For many caregivers, the idea of taking a break can feel like an impossibility. After all, who will look after your loved one while you're away? The answer lies in something called respite care, a way for you to step back and recharge while knowing that your loved one is still safe and well cared for. Today, we're diving into different types of respite care and other support resources that can make a world of difference in the caregiving journey. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is respite care? Respite care is short-term relief for primary caregivers, giving them a break from their daily responsibilities. This can range from a few hours to several days, depending on your needs. Now, I know it can be difficult to hand over the reins to someone else, especially if you're used to doing everything yourself. But let me share a story that may resonate. I once met a caregiver named Laura who was taking care of her mother, Alice, who had Alzheimer's disease. Laura was doing everything, managing medications, coordinating appointments, and dealing with her mother's unpredictable moods. She hadn't had a day off in months and was barely sleeping. One day, she broke down in tears in the middle of a grocery store. It wasn't a major incident that triggered it, just a simple decision about what kind of soup to buy. But it was a sign that she needed a break. A friend suggested she look into adult daycare for her mom, but Laura was hesitant. She thought, how can I trust strangers to look after her? But eventually, her exhaustion left her no choice. Laura found an adult daycare program nearby that provided activities and socialization for seniors with memory issues. She was able to drop Alice off a couple of times a week, which allowed Laura to rest, run errands, or even just enjoy a quiet cup of coffee. When she saw how much Alice enjoyed the activities and interacting with other seniors, she realized that respite care wasn't just a break for her, it was beneficial for her mother too. Adult daycare centers are a wonderful option for caregivers who need daytime relief. These programs provide social interaction, meals, and sometimes even medical services for seniors. It's a safe environment where your loved one can engage in activities while you get a few hours to yourself. Think of it as a way to hit pause and reset. Another form of respite care is in-home care, where a trained caregiver comes to your home and provides support for your loved one. This can include help with daily tasks like bathing, dressing, or just offering companionship. It's a flexible option because you can arrange for the caregiver to come for a few hours a week or even stay overnight if needed. One caregiver I spoke with shared how hiring an in-home aide for just one day a week made a huge difference. She used that time to attend a weekly yoga class, a small but essential act of self-care that helped her feel recharged. And then there's assisted living, which can be used not just as a long-term solution, but also for short-term stays. Many assisted living communities offer respite care stays, where your loved one can stay for a few days or weeks. This is especially helpful if you need to travel or simply take a longer break to rest. It's like a trial run for both you and your loved one to see if the environment is a good fit without making a permanent commitment. Aside from formal respite care options, there are also other community resources you can tap into. Senior centers often provide social activities and wellness programs, which can be a great way for your loved one to engage with others while giving you a little time off. Some senior centers even have transportation services to make it easier for seniors to attend programs. Don't overlook volunteer programs either. There are organizations like the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP, which connects volunteers with seniors in the community. These volunteers can provide companionship, help with light chores, or even run errands. Imagine having a trusted neighbor drop by for an hour to chat with your loved one while you go out for a walk or run a quick errand. Sometimes these small acts of support can make a big difference. Support groups are another invaluable resource, both for the person you're caring for and for you as the caregiver. Connecting with others who are in a similar situation can provide emotional support, practical advice, and a sense of community. It's a reminder that you're not alone on this journey. Some caregivers find in-person groups to be the most supportive, while others prefer the flexibility of online forums where they can connect with others at any time. Sometimes you need more than just a break, you need professional guidance. This is where counselors and therapists can help. They're trained to work with caregivers to process emotions, manage stress, and find healthy coping strategies. Talking to a professional doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise enough to seek support before things get too overwhelming. I met a caregiver named Dan who was struggling with the decision to move his father into assisted living. He felt guilty and conflicted, and he wasn't sure if it was the right choice. Dan decided to talk to an elder care counsellor who helped him navigate the emotions and provided a framework for making the decision. With professional guidance, Dan was able to see that moving his father wasn't about abandoning him. It was about getting him the specialised care he needed. This clarity allowed Dan to let go of some of the guilt and make a choice that was best for both of them. Sometimes the complexity of caregiving extends beyond emotional support, and you may need legal or financial advice. Elder law attorneys specialise in issues related to aging, such as estate planning, guardianship, and navigating Medicaid or veterans benefits. They can help you understand what legal documents you need, how to protect your loved one's assets, and what options are available for funding long-term care. Having a clear understanding of the legal and financial aspects of caregiving can ease some of the stress and uncertainty. The bottom line is, you don't have to do this alone. Respite care, senior centres, volunteer programs, support groups, and professional guidance are all here to help lighten the load. It's not about letting go of your responsibility, it's about sharing it. It's about acknowledging that you too have needs, and meeting those needs will ultimately make you a better caregiver. Remember, taking a break doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're recognizing the limits of your energy and honoring the importance of your own well-being. Now, we are going to explore the all-important topic of convincing a parent to transition to assisted living. Convincing a parent to move to assisted living can feel like one of the toughest conversations you'll ever have. It's not just about logistics or living arrangements. It's about emotions, memories, and letting go of a home that's been a part of the family for years. But as much as we cherish the idea of aging in place, sometimes it's just not the safest or healthiest option for our loved ones. Today, we're going to explore the pros and cons of aging in place versus assisted living, strategies for approaching this sensitive conversation, and debunking some common myths that surround assisted living facilities. Let's start with aging in place versus assisted living. It's easy to understand why so many seniors want to stay in their own homes. It's familiar, full of memories, and represents a sense of independence. For some, aging in place is a realistic option, especially if they have a robust support system, home modifications, and access to community resources. However, for others, the challenges can outweigh the benefits. The risks of isolation, falling, and managing daily tasks without assistance can make living alone dangerous. I remember talking to a caregiver named Janet. Her father, Bill, insisted on staying in the family home after her mother passed away. At first, everything seemed fine. Janet would visit on weekends, and her dad managed well enough. But as time went on, small issues started to add up. The stove would get left on, the house wasn't as clean as it used to be, and Bill started missing his medication. One day, Janet found her dad disoriented in the backyard after he had wandered outside in the middle of the night. It was then she knew that something needed to change. Assisted living can offer a safer alternative. These communities provide 24/7 access to care, social activities, nutritious meals, and a structured environment. It doesn't mean losing independence. Rather, it means gaining support to live life more fully. The idea isn't to take away your loved one's freedom, but to give them the help they need to enjoy a better quality of life. For many families, this shift in perspective can be the first step toward acceptance. Now, let's talk about strategies for approaching the conversation. It's important to be prepared for resistance. The idea of leaving home can feel like giving up control or admitting to being frail. It's a natural reaction, and it's crucial to approach the topic with empathy. Start the conversation early, long before a crisis happens. Planting the seed early on allows your loved one time to think about the idea without feeling pressured. When the time comes, use real-life examples to highlight the benefits of assisted living. For instance, you could say, "Dad, remember how hard it was to get to your doctor's appointment last winter?" In assisted living, you wouldn't have to worry about transportation. They have shuttles to take you anywhere you need to go. Or share a positive story about a friend or neighbor who made the move and thrived. The goal is to frame assisted living as a place of opportunity, not a last resort. It's also helpful to involve them in the decision-making process. Tour facilities together, discuss what kind of amenities are important to them, and get their input. This isn't about telling them what's going to happen, but rather about finding a solution together. Janet, the caregiver I mentioned earlier, did just that. She took her father to visit a few nearby assisted living communities. One of them had a woodworking shop, something Bill loved but hadn't had the space for at home in years. Seeing that shop made all the difference in his outlook, and he even started to get excited about the move. Another strategy is to focus on specific needs that are becoming harder to meet at home. If your parent is struggling with meal preparation, managing medications, or getting around the house safely, bring those concerns to the forefront. Sometimes hearing about the impact on their daily life from a medical professional can be more convincing than coming from a family member. Ask their doctor to weigh in on the conversation, as an objective perspective can carry weight. Now let's debunk some common myths about assisted living facilities, because these misconceptions can often create fear and resistance. One of the biggest myths is that assisted living is the same as a nursing home. This is not true. While nursing homes provide a higher level of medical care, assisted living focuses on offering support with daily tasks while promoting independence. It's not about being put away. It's about having the freedom to live life without the stress of managing a home or worrying about safety. Another common myth is that assisted living is too expensive. The cost can be a concern, but when you add up expenses like home maintenance, utilities, groceries, and transportation, the price gap may not be as wide as you think. Additionally, there are financial resources available, such as veterans' benefits, long-term care insurance, and even Medicaid in some cases. It's important to research and explore all the options rather than assuming assisted living is out of reach. Finally, there's the fear that assisted living is a place where seniors are forgotten. Many people associate assisted living with loneliness or isolation, but the reality is that these communities are designed to foster social interaction. There are opportunities for residents to engage in activities, participate in outings, and form friendships. For someone who has been living alone and struggling with isolation, this environment can be a revitalizing change. Janet was initially worried that her father would feel lonely after moving out of the family home, but it turned out to be quite the opposite. Bill quickly found a group of friends in the woodworking shop, and he started attending weekly game nights. He wasn't isolated anymore. In fact, Janet found that he was busier and happier than he had been in years. Transitioning to assisted living is a big decision, and it's okay to acknowledge the emotional weight of that. Remember that this process is about working together to find the best solution. By weighing the pros and cons, approaching the conversation with empathy, and debunking the myths that surround assisted living, you can help your parents see it not as a loss of independence, but as an opportunity for a new chapter. Finally, finding fulfillment and meaning in caregiving. Caregiving is one of the most challenging roles a person can take on. It demands time, energy, and an emotional resilience that many don't realize they have until they're put to the test. But even amidst the long hours, the stress, and the uncertainty, caregiving can also be deeply fulfilling. It's a journey that can bring unexpected rewards, strengthen bonds, and help you find a deeper sense of purpose. Today, we'll explore how to embrace the imperfections of caregiving, prioritize self-care and reflect on the meaningful moments that can make the experience worthwhile. Let's begin with the idea of accepting imperfection and letting go of guilt. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the responsibility of caregiving and to judge yourself harshly when things don't go as planned. There will be days when you feel like you're not doing enough or when you wish you could do more. It's normal to experience guilt, especially when you're caring for someone you love and want the best for them. But it's important to remind yourself that you're only human and no one can do everything perfectly. I remember speaking to a caregiver named Mike, who took care of his mother after she had a stroke. He felt guilty every time he had to hire outside help or take a day off. He worried that it meant he wasn't doing his job well enough. But as time went on, he learned that being a good caregiver didn't mean doing everything himself. It meant knowing his limits, accepting help when needed, and doing the best he could. It wasn't about achieving perfection, it was about showing up each day with love and doing what was possible in the moment. When you let go of the need to be a perfect caregiver, you give yourself permission to experience the role in a healthier, more sustainable way. The truth is, caregiving is full of unpredictable moments. There will be setbacks, challenges, and times when you don't have all the answers. That doesn't make you a failure, it makes you a caregiver. Accepting that you can't control everything and that some things are out of your hands allows you to focus on what you can do. Remember, it's the small acts of kindness, the time spent together, and the genuine care that truly matter. Next, let's talk about learning to prioritize self-care while caring for others. The idea of self-care can seem like a luxury when you're busy taking care of someone else. But the reality is that if you don't take care of yourself, you won't have the energy or resilience to take care of anyone else. It's not selfish to put your own needs on the list. It's necessary. You don't need to carve out huge blocks of time. Even small moments can make a difference. It could be a few minutes of quiet with your morning coffee, a short walk in the evening, or reading a chapter of a book before bed. Think of it as refilling your own cup. When you're constantly pouring out your energy for someone else, it's easy to become depleted. Finding little ways to recharge can keep you from running on empty. I recall a caregiver named Linda who used to feel guilty for spending time away from her father, who had Alzheimer's. But she started a new routine. Every Sunday morning, she would take an hour just for herself, whether it was for a yoga class or simply sitting in a park. She realized that after taking this time for herself, she felt calmer, more patient, and more able to handle the demands of the week. Self-care isn't just about rest either. It's also about setting boundaries and recognizing when you need help. If you're trying to do everything on your own, you may feel like there's no room for anything else in your life. But remember, it's okay to ask for support. It's okay to say no when you need a break. Delegating tasks, hiring respite care, or even having a friend stay with your loved one for an hour can provide the space you need to recharge. Self-care is a form of strength. It's a way of making sure you're at your best, so you can continue to be there for the person who needs you. And now, let's reflect on the positives, strengthening bonds and finding purpose. It can be easy to get caught up in the day-to-day stresses of caregiving and forget about the meaningful moments that happen along the way. But caregiving can offer an opportunity to deepen your relationship with your loved one. It's a chance to share stories, revisit memories, and create new experiences together. It's not just about taking care of their physical needs. It's also about being present and making time for those moments of connection. I've heard countless stories from caregivers who say that despite the challenges, they wouldn't trade the experience for anything. They talk about the unexpected conversations they've had with their parents or partners, the times they've laughed together, and the quiet moments that brought them closer. One caregiver I spoke to, Mark, shared that the time spent caring for his father allowed him to learn about his dad's life in a way he never had before. They talked about his dad's childhood, his first job, and even stories about Mark's grandparents that he had never heard. Those conversations became some of Mark's most cherished memories. Caregiving also has a way of teaching us about ourselves. It can be a path to discovering inner strength, resilience, and patience that you didn't know you had. It helps you grow in ways you never anticipated. When you find purpose in caregiving, it can transform the experience from a burden into an opportunity for growth. It doesn't mean that it's easy, but it does mean that you're doing something that matters, something that makes a difference, even if it's not always immediately visible. Sometimes, finding fulfillment means acknowledging the impact you're making, even if it feels small. It might be the comfort you bring by sitting beside your loved one, the joy of helping them enjoy a favorite meal, or simply being there when they need you. These are acts of love, and they carry immense value. When you reflect on these moments, you'll realize that caregiving isn't just about what you're giving up, it's about what you're giving. Letting go of the need for perfection, prioritizing self-care, and finding meaning in the journey can help you navigate the challenges of caregiving with a fuller heart. Remember, it's okay to feel a mix of emotions, to have difficult days, and to reach out for help. You're not alone in this, and the work you're doing is important. It's not just about providing care. It's about showing up, making a difference, and finding those moments that make the journey worthwhile. As we come to the end of this conversation, let's take a moment to acknowledge the ongoing journey of caregiving. It's not a path with a clear beginning or end, and it certainly isn't one you can walk with a perfect map in hand. Caregiving evolves, sometimes gradually, sometimes suddenly, but always in ways that challenge you to adapt, grow, and find strength you may not have known you had. It's a journey that calls for compassion, not just for the person you're caring for, but also for yourself. Remember, you don't have to do it all alone. Staying informed about the resources available to you, whether it's financial support, respite care, or community programs, can make a world of difference. Knowledge is power, and the more you understand the tools and assistance at your disposal, the more confidently you can navigate the twists and turns of caregiving. Don't be afraid to ask questions, seek advice, or learn new strategies. There's no shame in admitting that you don't have all the answers. Seeking help isn't a sign of weakness, it's an act of courage. Whether you need professional guidance, emotional support, or just an extra pair of hands, reaching out for help shows that you recognize your limits and care enough to ensure the best possible care for your loved one. Lean on friends, family, support groups, or healthcare professionals when things feel overwhelming. You are not meant to do this alone, and the strength you find in your community can help lighten the load. And most importantly, practice self-compassion. It's easy to get caught up in feelings of guilt, frustration, or even resentment, but you're doing something extraordinary. You're showing up every day and doing your best in circumstances that are often far from easy. Give yourself credit for the love, dedication, and effort you're putting into caregiving. Allow yourself to be imperfect, to have hard days, and to make mistakes. It doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're human. As this journey continues, there will be moments of joy, connection, and even laughter amid the challenges. Cherish those moments. They're reminders that even in the midst of difficulty, there is beauty, meaning, and purpose to be found. Caregiving isn't just about meeting someone else's needs. It's also about embracing the growth and transformation that come from giving a part of yourself to help another. It's about finding fulfillment even when things aren't perfect. So, as you move forward, keep learning, keep reaching out, and above all, keep being kind to yourself. The caregiving journey isn't one size fits all, and there's no single right way to do it. What matters is that you're here, you're trying, and you're making a difference. That's enough. That's more than enough. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. This is your host, Rosalie. Together, we can face the challenges, celebrate the victories, and support each other every step of the way. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep moving forward with compassion, resilience, and hope.